My grandfather helped lay the first floor in the first sanctuary here and helped build it. He was a carpenter. When the church was going to be built, he jumped in and said, well, I can do that. I can help with that. That's something I can do too. And he did.
My fondest memories from my youth until today, I still enjoy singing in the choir and in the singing Christmas tree. And I remember in 1981, the tree was filled with children singing in the tree, and my daughters were both in the tree.
As a teenager, I loved youth choir. John Bowers was our director, and I loved to come to choir. And I loved GAs when we had GAs, and Sarah Moy was my leader, one of my GA leaders. And we used to have these things called Come As You Are parties. And the GA leaders would come to our house on Saturday morning. Our parents knew, but we didn't know. And they'd just get us out of bed, and we'd come up to the church, and we'd have donuts. And, you know, you always have donuts. Yeah. And we'd just have a big party on a Saturday. It was a lot of fun.
I think one of the most wonderful memories is the time when we were singing in the high choir with John Bowers, who was our music director. He was very famous for being loud and very demonstrative in his actions. Sometimes kids and young people would come in and they'd be a little frightened of him, but he really meant no harm. That was just him. But he strived for excellence, and excellence he got because of the way he was.
Dr. Knight said God created a beautiful world for us to live in and enjoy. And I want to bring that beauty into this sanctuary. There was a note on the door to the sanctuary to not enter because there was scaffolding and such. As young children, we would go crack the door and we'd peek in on Wednesday nights to see what had happened since Sunday morning. It was very exciting, and he was right. When they were completed, the sun would pour into the sanctuary, putting spots of color all over. It just changed things a little bit. Because it is a beautiful world. It made worship that much more beautiful.
I guess earliest memories is, talking with Dr. Malcolm Knight and him going through the process of joining the church and getting baptized. And I remember sitting with him and going through a book and being a part of that, and then getting baptized in the sanctuary is probably one of my first major memories of this church.
We met here in 1957 era. My brother invited me up to the party, and that's when at that party, I met Sarah. She had a date, I had a date. And I asked my brother, so who was that lady with that individual? He said, that's the lady I've been wanting you to meet. And that's Sarah. So Dr. Knight married us June the 16th, 1962, and the rest is history.
My history with this church is kind of unique, serving as the pastor since 2008, but my involvement goes back way further than that. Like, I was baptized here at the age of 9 in the sanctuary by Cornelius Davis, who was the pastor before Mark and after Dr. Knight. Just really was blessed by this church. It's where I came to know the Lord. It's where I grew in my understanding of who He is and His plan for my life, accepted my call to ministry. My wife Sherry and I were married here in 1993. And it's just a special place. So many of my spiritual mile markers were made right here.
That is really the key. We always been a giving church. And we found that the members of the church was of like-mindedness to us in that they were so supportive through all the different trials that you would have in life. And we found a home that far extended beyond being fed on Sunday morning or Wednesday night by the pastor. And that's always been important to us.
We're welcoming and we love everyone, no matter what. And they just welcome everyone. Everyone's welcome, and it's just so nice to see. You know, it's just the best.
The people here were always very welcoming. They reached out to strangers and sort of took you in without a lot of background information, and they were very friendly and very open and extremely supportive.
I think the love that we show to other people has always been, I always remember that. I always remember people being willing to give that love to other people who came in who might be different or might be broken. This church has just always had an outpouring of love, whether it's been to the members or to people in the community or to outsiders coming in.
When you walk into the sanctuary, everyone is very friendly, and no one is a stranger, for one thing, and there are just so many opportunities, you know, for people if they want to get involved.
The people in the church were good. I mean, I'm talking about they were friendly, and they would call you by your first name. And elderly people, the same way. They would, once they met you, you were part of the group, and they would really treat you very nice. And it's the same way today.
We actually go into the community and we serve, and we try to help our fellow members. We try to help anyone in need.
My mother was she wasn't a member when it started, but she was 11 years old, and this is the church she came to. When she was that age, she came from a divorced home, and so I think she found something here that made her feel good and a place to go and be a part of, and so I think that was a lot of it. There's the same love that it shows today. It showed back then to a young girl that was, trying to find her way in life and where she was headed.
The history of the church really flows from one generation to the next and then beyond us into the next generation. And it's my greatest prayer as the pastor of this church that all the great things that God has done in and through this church will outlast all of us. And as long as the Lord tarries in his return, that there will be a witness on this corner of people who love the Lord and love each other.
What I see as far as the church plant is concerned is when we tied the church sanctuary into the education building, bringing in the McGuire area, made a huge difference in the way we could carry on our responsibilities to the church. That was very hugely important.
The fundamentals of faith, knowledge, support, these things have not changed. I think the church has changed somewhat as society around us has changed. We have grown and changed. Some of the things are better. Some of them, I would like to go back to the old ways, but you don't do that. You don't go back, you go forward.
The lower room and the upper room. The lower room makes a lot of changes. A lot of different things happen. The way you operate the building, the way you operate classes, the way you operate different things. But the commitment to that upper room, where everybody believes in what it's all about, is very strong. And I think that's, what I see is growing up, that for that upper room never changed. And I think that's the great part about it, what the belief in what it is, and, Jesus Christ dying on the cross and then, raising from the dead to save our souls.
I just love the outreach that we're not so focused on building this church to just be bigger, but the goal is to make sure that everybody hears the name of Jesus. And I love that we start churches, that we start missions, and that we send people, and that we set our children up to be prepared to go on mission trips.
As we celebrate our 85th anniversary and we look back on all the ways that God has been faithful, we also are moving back to the future because we know that God has an amazing future in store for this church. And many of the things that have contributed to make this church great are going to be the very things that we need to carry with us into the future. So as we celebrate and give thanks for God's faithfulness, we also look forward with hope and anticipation of all the things God is going to do in the future. And whether we're here to see it or not, we know that God holds the future and the future of Aspire Church San Marco in his hands.